This is my video for assignment 3, question 4, to have the number of button clicks for two different buttons dictate which LEDs are on. For my buttons, I'm using C10 and C3. And for my LEDs, I'm using A0 and A1. Here is where I initiate the LEDs to turn the clock on for port A, and then set up the output and pull and push-pull for LED 0, and then here's the same for LED 1. Down here is where I set up the buttons along with the interrupts, turning GPIO C's clock on over here, setting the pin for button 0 as an input and then as a pull down, and then same thing for button 1 here. And then here I'm setting up the two interrupts for interrupts line 10 and 3, along with setting their priority. And then over here I'm making sure that the interrupt line for interrupt 3 is pulling from port C, so it's the C3, and then I'm doing the same thing here for C10. Make sure it pulls from C. And then here I'm making sure that they're not masked so that they're both enabled. And then here I'm making sure that the buttons are triggering, like the interrupts for the button are triggering on a rising edge. And then here is the interrupt handler for interrupt 10. First it checks the flag for 10, and then it adds adds 1 to one of the counter for how many times this button has been clicked. And then it does the logic to tell which LEDs to turn on. If button 2 has been clicked more than button 1, then it turns on button LED 1, and then turns off LED 0, and then vice versa for the opposite case. And then if they've been clicked the same amount, then they are both on. And here is similar logic for the other interrupt handler. And then here's my main. I initiate the LEDs, and then I turn both of the LEDs on since both of the buttons have been clicked 0 times, so they're equal, so they should both be on. And then I set up the interrupts and the buttons, and then the hanging while loop. And here's the code in action. This has just been started up. If I click this one once, that button turns on. If I click this one once, now they're both 1, so they are both on. If I click this one more time, that one turns on since they're not equal anymore. And then for my wiring, I have 3.3 volts coming here through the resistors, through the buttons, and then the wires are connected to their respective port for C3 and C10. And then there is a capacitor there for debouncing, and then they're connected to ground over here. And then here A0 and A1 are connected to these LEDs. They go through those resistors, through the LEDs, and then to ground.